Next Sunday is the Royal Rumble pay-per-view 2020 edition of the Royal Rumble. Takes place January 26th from Minute Maid Park in Houston, Texas. Houston, Texas, home of the jet-flying, sign-stealing, wheelin'-dealin' Houston Astros. Admonished by Major League Baseball this week for using cameras and video monitors to steal signs from the opposing teams in 2017, which just so happened to be the first season in their existence where they won the World Series. How about that? Their manager suspended for 1 year, their general manager suspended for 1 year, and then both of them fired by the team owner. That general manager will never work in baseball again. I'm sure the manager will. The GM, I don't expect him to ever work in baseball again. They were stripped of their first and second round draft picks each of the next 2 years. The team was fined the maximum, which is $5 million. And it still probably wasn't a harsh enough penalty, to be honest with you. They get to keep their championship. They should have been stripped, but they get to keep their championship, which now means about as much as Shawn Michaels beating Bret Hart for the title in Montreal does. But even worse, my team, the Mets, got dragged into this mess because they just a couple months ago, they just hired Carlos Beltran to be their new manager. The same Carlos Beltran who was the only player named in that investigation, in that entire report that Major League Baseball issued this past week. Obviously, there were a lot of players complicit in this, but I guess the players got immunity so that they would give the investigators more details. But Beltran was the only player named in that entire report because he was playing for the Astros that season. And then he very abruptly retired. As soon as they won the championship and the season ended, he retired as a player. See, the Red Sox, they fired their manager over the whole controversy this week. He was also part of that whole scam back in 2017. And then he became the manager for the Boston Red Sox. Now they've been dragged into all this. They fired him. Alex Cora, he's gone. Then Thursday, without having managed a single game for the Mets, Beltran stepped down as the manager of the New York Mets. I didn't think they would do it. At first, I didn't think they would do it. But really, as the week went on, they had no choice. They would have followed him and this team around. The whole stink of this would have followed them around for the entire season. Any success that this team would have had with him at the helm would have been second guessed. Oh, how are they doing so well? The team's on a 10-game hot streak. Oh, they must be cheating. You can't have that shit following you around all season. So look, I mean, they're already paying Bobby Bonilla for another 15 years. They're set to be paying him on that deferred money deal over $1 million every July 1st. Why do you think they call it Bobby Bonilla Day? Every July 1st, we all celebrate. It's Bobby Bonilla Day. He gets to cash his $1 million check. The guy hasn't played for the Mets since 1999. He's going to be paid until 2035. Make him the manager. They're paying Brett Saberhagen $250,000 every single year still for another decade, I think. Another one of those deferred money deals. He hasn't played for the Mets since 1995, when fucking Mantar was wrestling on Superstars, and Freddie Joe Floyd, and Hakushi, and Jean-Pierre Lafitte stole Bret Hart's jacket. That's the last time this guy played for the Mets. $250,000 a year he's making. They could be co-managers together. Now it sounds like Dusty Baker may end up getting the Mets job. We'll see. But that's 3 managerial vacancies in the span of a few days, less than a month before spring training. All the baseball fans are like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? But this was the big deal this week. We've not seen a story like this. So yeah, the Rumble is in Houston next Sunday. Hopefully they do a sweep of the clubhouse before they let anybody inside. Make sure there's no hidden cameras anywhere. Since I'll be away this week, this is the only time I could do my Rumble predictions. I understand I'm doing them even earlier than usual. It's not ideal to be doing the predictions before the go-home shows, but there's nothing I can do about that. I do think that there's a chance they add a match or two this week, and one of the matches that they could add, I don't know the likelihood of it, but there's been some rumblings, is a tag team match with the Revival taking on Harlem Heat. Now this goes back to the Revival calling out Booker T and Stevie Ray last month. You know, Booker's on those pre-show pay-per-view panels. I think it was at TLC, and they had some words for him, and then it spilled over onto social media. And so people started pushing for this match. Oh, Harlem Heat, maybe get Harlem Heat back in the ring. The Rumble's going to be in their hometown of Houston. They could take on the Revival, even if it's on the kickoff show or something. Booker said he's been training for his return. Should WWE agree to book the match, he gave them, I think, 1 week, make up their minds, or else, I'm going to stop training. Maybe if not at the Rumble, I mean, hey, maybe they do it next month in Saudi Arabia. They're doing another Saudi show on February 27th. As if we needed another show before WrestleMania. We've got the Rumble, we've got the Elimination Chamber. Now we're getting Sweet Saudi Money 5, Staying Alive. They should get the rights to use the Bee Gees song for this show. If they do announce the match for the Rumble, I'm going to preemptively give my prediction. I'm going to go with Dash and Dawson for the win. Just because at some point, you got to give these guys something, right? I mean, if they think they have any chance of keeping these guys and re-signing them, and I do think they're going to stay. I feel like they're going to end up staying. I think you got to give them a win like that. So, anyway, if the match happens, that's my prediction. Let's get to the matches that we do know. Sheamus, one-on-one against Chad Gable. When they introduced Gable as Shorty G on Friday night for a backstage interview, you could hear the boos. The reaction he got, a good word for it would be tepid. Oh, he's so much more over now, isn't he? Look how over this guy is. Comes out with that stupid smile and that stupid outfit they have him wearing now, to mostly boos from the crowd. The complete opposite of the way it was just a couple of months ago when he actually had built up some momentum for himself. Actually, more than a couple of months ago. When did that King of the Ring end? It was probably 3 or 4 months ago at this point. So he's taking on Sheamus. I actually think that these two might have very good chemistry together. I thought the matches between Sheamus and Daniel Bryan largely were very good. They were great in some cases. And if, Gable can kind of tap into that, and, they're similar performers. I'm not going to say Gable's as good as Daniel Bryan or anything like that, but they're kind of cut from the same cloth in a way. Depending how much time they get, I think this could actually turn out to be very good. But the outcome is not in doubt for me at all. Sheamus gets the win. We have King Corbin against Roman Reigns, the match that nobody asked for, because both men are already in the Royal Rumble match. Corbin beat Reigns at TLC. Since then, the Usos have returned to even the odds with their cousin, their Us, against Corbin, Dolph Ziggler, and Bobby Roode. Now, they've been doing matches between Corbin and Reigns on the house shows, where the loser is forced to eat dog food. Thankfully, that will not be the stipulation here. Instead, it will be falls count anywhere, after Roman Reigns got to pick the stip by beating Bobby Roode in a tables match on SmackDown. I've got Reigns winning this. With the stipulation, though, look, they could have Corbin's buddies help him out. Look, we've seen people in Falls Count Anywhere matches get pinned with a giant pallet on a forklift held over their body so they can't kick out. It's like a hollow victory. I would not discount the possibility, given the stip, that Reigns could lose. Corbin's got his buddies. Maybe they beat down the Usos or something. They help Corbin win. Roman comes back out later in the show. He wins the Rumble match, and they milk this thing for one more pay-per-view match before WrestleMania, with Roman Reigns' title shot at WrestleMania up for grabs. I do not want to see this. I hope I did not just wish this into existence. I am still picking Roman Reigns to win this match. I want him to win so we can finally be done with this. It has served its purpose to put Roman Reigns against somebody who people hate so much, to make sure that the people stand united behind Roman Reigns. That is the one thing that they have managed to do, is largely keep these crowds loud and in favor of and standing with Roman Reigns. But it's been long enough. It's time to put a bullet in this and move on. We have Bayley against Lacey Evans for the SmackDown Women's Championship. Lacey pinned Bayley in a non-title match. It was supposed to be against Sasha Banks. Ended up being against Bayley on SmackDown. And Lacey won with the woman's right. Pinned her right in the middle of the ring. I don't think lightning strikes twice. So Bayley will retain her championship. Becky Lynch defends her Raw Women's Championship against Asuka in a match where Becky is being framed as the underdog. It was 1 year ago at this very event at the Royal Rumble in another baseball stadium that Asuka not only beat Becky before Becky went on to win the Women's Rumble match later that night, but she tapped Becky out in the Asuka lock, a win that was never followed up on, never mentioned again, until many months later. Not until Paul Heyman was made executive director of Monday Night Raw and reportedly was the one who pitched the idea about revisiting this feud. Hey, let's come back to this. We've got a giant loose end here. No, Asuka's doing the tag team thing, but let's revisit this story. And I like how they've been doing a better job lately of making Asuka out to be the killer that she once was. Becky has shown vulnerability for the first time since becoming champion. On Monday night, during the contract signing, Asuka spit green mist in Becky's face, in her eyes, which she sold like crazy, and she asked for a microphone while she was still blinded, and she cut this impassioned promo on Asuka. I thought this was a good piece of business. I'm not opposed to having Asuka win again and have Becky regain the title and finally get her big win at WrestleMania. I think that'd be kind of cool because that would at least give Asuka a big WrestleMania match. And you know the match probably would be pretty good. But I cannot see them doing this. I cannot see them having her beat Becky again. I think Becky finally gets her win here over Asuka. She retains her championship, her revenge 1 year later. She finally gets it on Asuka. And then she goes on to defend her championship at WrestleMania against one of three women. Either Ronda Rousey, Shayna Baszler, or Nia Jax. And I'm going to talk more about that in a second. I know people are getting all in a huff right now. I'm going to talk about that in a second. Daniel Bryan challenges The Fiend, Bray Wyatt, in a strap match for the Universal Championship. So I guess the idea here, according to Bryan's promo backstage on Friday night, he's sick and tired of The Fiend running away. We've seen The Fiend kind of crawl back into the hole in the ring. When he comes up from the hole, he crawls back into the hole. You know, he's pretty adept at this. It can be hard in the dark to find the hole, but he goes right into it. There it is. Boom, right into it. And Bryan's putting his hands and his fists in there into the hole, trying to pull him out, and he can't get him. And he's sick and tired of this, and so he wants a strap match. So that way, they're bound by the wrist, and The Fiend cannot run away. I cannot recall a time in which The Fiend has run away from anybody during his actual matches. So I don't think this is necessarily going to be... It's almost like a solution for a problem that doesn't exist, but I guess Bryan just doesn't want to take any chances. He did not clarify if this is a typical WWE strap match or if this is a Yappa Pie Indian strap match, which is far more devastating. They did an angle with Kane. Kane was back. Kane was back on SmackDown this week in his gear and everything. I was thinking he's going to wrestle. Didn't wrestle. He came out, lights went out, Fiend came out, Kane was waiting for him. He was waiting in the aisle for him. And when the Fiend crawled out of the hole in the ring, Kane turned around and said, "What took you so long?" And when the Fiend turned around, there was Bryan with the running knee, takes out the Fiend, and the Fiend crawled away. So we're getting a strap match at the Royal Rumble. I don't think the outcome is going to be any different than I thought it would be a week ago, which is The Fiend retains. I cannot see him losing just yet. I think he retains the championship. Now, maybe they could do some kind of a fuck finish, to keep this thing going. Maybe Daniel Bryan manages to kind of work his way into the championship match at WrestleMania. Maybe, I've seen the rumors that it could be a three-way. There was some kind of a leaked WrestleMania lineup. I don't know if it was a fake. Could have been a fake. But it was showing, Bryan and Reigns and The Fiend. And I don't buy into any of that stuff necessarily. I mean, you're going to see a lot of reports going back and forth. But there was a screenshot of it. Who knows? Who knows if it's legitimate or not? I don't see him winning the championship here. I actually thought the Kane angle on SmackDown was pretty well done. We didn't get a hug. They didn't hug it out, but we got a little Team Hell No reunion action. And Kane left. When they came back from break, they were kind of doing the whole, I was the tag team champion. No, I was the tag team champion. And then, the backstage interviewer pulled Bryan aside and Kane said, "See ya," and he left. And we never saw him again. Perfect. Perfect appearance by Kane. He didn't overstay his welcome. And I don't expect him to be in the Rumble either or anything. I think it was just a one-and-done type of thing. That's fine. I have no problem with that. Kane and Big Show, a special attraction type thing, one and done, great. but I think it's going to be the Fiend retaining. Now, the one thing I will say, that speaking of fakes, and again, I don't know if there's any truth to this or not, there was a screenshot floating around that showed a Super Showdown graphic. We know we have another Saudi show coming up the end of next month, and it was showing the Fiend defending his championship against Kane. I don't buy it. I don't think it's legit. I don't even know if they're going to call this Super Showdown or not. They were saying it would be an Inferno match. There was nothing in the graphic to even indicate Inferno match, but supposedly it was local advertising in Saudi Arabia. I'll believe it when I see it. I don't necessarily buy into that either. But, Kane and The Fiend in an Inferno match in Saudi Arabia just sounds like a disaster waiting to happen. Hopefully, that is not a match I need to see. 30-woman Royal Rumble match. So far announced officially, we have Charlotte Flair, Alexa Bliss, Nikki Cross, and Sarah Logan. What a lineup. I picked Ronda Rousey to make her return and win the match on the prediction show last week, so I'm going to stick to that. Instead of Shayna Baszler winning and challenging Becky for the title at WrestleMania, my kind of scenario had been Ronda shows up, she wins. We get the singles match between them that we did not get last year at WrestleMania. Becky wins again, but then the next night on Raw is when Shayna attacks, and Shayna is the one to eventually take the championship from Becky. I actually prefer that scenario. Not the one that I predicted, but the one where Shayna gets the match at WrestleMania. But I just have this feeling that, we haven't heard much about Ronda, and I don't think she's quite done yet. And I'm sure they would love for her to make a big splash like that and get a lot of headlines. And the one good thing is if we end up getting that singles match, I don't know how the match itself would go, but it's the match that a lot of people had been hoping would be the WrestleMania match last year. They included Charlotte. I thought the match was underwhelming. I thought that had more to do just with the spot that they were in coming off such a long show. People were kind of tapped out, I think, at that point. But I still think there's some juice left in the whole Becky and Ronda thing, and I can see them going down that road. Javon sent me an email, and I did want to mention this. He emailed me with an idea that I can't say that I'm really a fan of, but the more I think about it, I don't think it can be discounted as being a real possibility. It just depends on how far along she is with her recovery. And that is that Nia Jax makes a surprise return in the Women's Royal Rumble match and wins. And goes on to challenge Becky Lynch for the Raw Women's Championship at WrestleMania. And instead, you could always save Becky and Ronda for SummerSlam or do Becky and Shayna, coming out of WrestleMania. It could get a lot of heat if Nia wins the Rumble and there's the obvious history between them, but that just sounds like a terrible match to do at WrestleMania. But could the build work? Yeah, I think they could find a way to make it work. I just don't want them to. I want them to fail. I don't want them to do that. Becky and Nia at WrestleMania is not the match that I want to see. But I thought it was worth mentioning as a scenario. We have not gotten a status update recently other than Nia was seen at the Performance Center many weeks ago. She's recovering from double ACL surgery. So I'm not even sure she's ready to come back yet. But if she were to pop up in the Rumble, I don't think you could discount her as a possible winner. And then we have the 30-man over-the-top rope Royal Rumble match. The men's Royal Rumble match. So far, we know Brock Lesnar, the WWE champion, is going to be entering in the number 1 spot. Cain Velasquez, he is in the Royal Rumble. He went and blabbed to the UK Sun this week. I'm not sure he was supposed to. He blabbed that he will be in the Royal Rumble match. Not sure why you wouldn't save that as a surprise, but whatever. As long as he doesn't win the whole thing, I don't care. Roman Reigns, King Corbin, AJ Styles, Ricochet, Randy Orton, Dolph Ziggler, Drew McIntyre, Eric Rowan, Elias, Bob Lashley, Rusev, Buddy Murphy, Aleister Black, Braun Strowman, and Shinsuke Nakamura, with more to be announced this week. On the prediction show, I picked Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns was my pick to win the Royal Rumble match and challenge The Fiend at WrestleMania. Vince McMahon has got to be like a junkie tweaking to get his fix with how long he has held out Roman Reigns from the title picture. Not the most exciting choice to win, but it's the one that I think is the likeliest, and so I'm going with the big dog. Woof woof. Roman Reigns to win the Royal Rumble. I do expect some NXT names in there. I don't know that they're doing 10, 10, and 10, which was originally a rumor going around. They would have 10 people from Raw, 10 people from SmackDown, and 10 representatives from NXT. It seemed kind of believable and kind of likely coming out of Survivor Series, as deep as the involvement was for NXT, and NXT kicked Raw and SmackDown's asses. So why wouldn't they have more representation? That was one of the big mistakes, I think. You could have actually had something at stake in that Survivor Series competition between the brands, where maybe the winning brand, could get the number 30 spot or X number of picks, in the Royal Rumble match. And they never did that. But I do expect to see some NXT people in there. I would be stunned if they weren't. And I do think Brock Lesnar will stick around in there for a while. I don't think he's going to be out so quickly. I mean, I don't necessarily expect him to be there in the end. They'd have to do an angle where he gets taken out. One of these lame things where he gets taken out and then comes back. I hope they don't do that. But yes, if Brock Lesnar were still there in the end, he would be as red as a red balloon. He would probably be ready to drop at that point. And I think that their make good to Kofi Kingston for a nice Rumble moment is going to be Kofi Kingston getting the shock elimination on Brock Lesnar. Now, it's not going to lead to a rematch at WrestleMania. I'm not picking Kofi to win, but just to give Kofi a nice revenge moment and a big pop from the crowd. Maybe Cain Velasquez or somebody has Brock distracted. It's like a Maven moment, right? Where Maven drop-kicked The Undertaker from behind. He was distracted by the Hardy Boys outside. He got dumped out. It's one of the most memorable moments in Royal Rumble history to this day, and that was almost 20 years ago. And this would be a similar type of moment for Kofi Kingston. Now, it's cheap, but I'm going to say Kofi is the one to eliminate Brock from this Royal Rumble. I would love to see them run with Drew McIntyre and have him go all the way. He's been coming along nicely, I think, these last few weeks. So I said that last week too, that I was picking Roman to win as my prediction, but I'd love to see Drew get the shot. Undertaker, he was spotted at the Performance Center this week. I don't know what that means, if anything. It may mean nothing at all. I think we'll see Edge make a cameo. Sticking with that prediction. I don't see him in a WrestleMania match, but a spot in the Rumble to do something kind of quick, I could see that. I expect it. I want to see Drew, but I got to pick Roman to win the whole thing. So that's the Royal Rumble rundown. I'm sure they'll add something this week. I don't know if they will add an Intercontinental Championship match with Strowman and Shinsuke. They're already in the Rumble. And this is, for a Royal Rumble pay-per-view, you want to give the Rumble matches time. This is already a pretty loaded card in terms of the number of matches. I don't really think they need to add much more. If they do put those two together in a title match, maybe Strowman wins by DQ or something, but I'm picking Shinsuke to retain. It just seems like Braun Strowman is allergic. I know he held the tag belts with the 9-year-old, but he is allergic to titles in this company. He failed at every turn to win the Universal title, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. So if they do the match, my preemptive prediction is that Shinsuke will retain, but we'll see if they add anything as the week goes on. I hope they save some surprises for the Royal Rumble matches. Feels like they're not going to have very many of them this year. Hopefully they'll have a few up their sleeve. I will be going live after the Royal Rumble next Sunday on YouTube for our usual monthly pay-per-view post shows. And usually the Royal Rumble review is one of the biggest shows I do all year. So when the Royal Rumble goes off the air next Sunday, join me live on YouTube and we'll have a full review of the pay-per-view, all the winners and losers from Minute Maid Park in Houston next Sunday.